Hello there, and welcome to this month's episode of our Diversity Inclusion podcast, or vodcast, depending on how you're listening to it, addressing the elephant in the room. I'm Lindsay Bridges, and during this series, I will be exploring DHL Supply Chain UK and Ireland's journey on our D&I agenda. We'll be addressing a range of topics around diversity through discussions with colleagues from across the business. In this episode, I am thrilled to be talking with Dav and Tutu, two leaders from here in our UK and I supply chain business. And we'll be talking about their personal journeys that brought them to where they are today. So Tutu, why don't you start and just give us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Lindsay. So, I'm originally from Nigeria. So a lot of people ask me what the meaning of my name is. So my full name is actually Adetutu, and that means the crown is gentle in broad terms. So I'm originally from Nigeria. I've lived approximately half of my life in the UK, half of my life in Nigeria, and the rest of my life around the world, really. So I'm definitely a product of many societies. I am the first of three children. My upbringing was, fairly strict, firm, fair, but full of love, and one that, I cherish and remember fondly. I'm a person of strong faith. So again, that really directs everything that I do in life, really. So that's a bit about me.
Brilliant, Tutu. Tutu, thanks for sharing that. And I hadn't realised that you'd spent sort of only half of your life in the UK. So that's interesting to hear. So, Dav, you tell us a little bit about what your story is, your background.
Thanks, Lindsay. Firstly, can I just say thanks for having me on this. In terms of my story, my full name's Davinder Singh Tattle. I'm a British Sikh. My parents came over in the 1960s. So my dad came over from Punjab in India, my mum from Kenya. So they settled there. I was born in Forest Gate, and I'm the eldest of five. And so the eldest of five children, real strong in terms of my beliefs in Sikhism, but I also have a real affinity to being British, and I'm really proud of that. I've been married for 26 years, so got three gorgeous daughters, and two passions for me really in terms of outside of work are football. I've been a season ticket holder at Tottenham since 1999. And also played golf really badly. So, but yeah, they're my real strong passions outside of my immediate family.
Gosh, you've been a season ticket holder at Tottenham since as long as I've been working in logistics. That's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've played some real rubbish football in that time as well, I tell
you. Brilliant. So, Tutu, your role is leading our environmental agenda, really important agenda for the business these days. But how did you get into that as a career?
This is going to sound really cliche, okay? But I've always wanted to help people in one way or the other. I've always wanted to save the world. That's just, me. That's just how I've been. And I actually started off wanting to become a reconstructive surgeon. So I wanted to give people back something that they lost. That was my passion. But as I kind of continued around that, I started to hear and see stories around pollution, really, where I grew up, particularly in oil-producing nations. And then, I began to really think about doing something there because I felt like I could, again, save more people in that way, because I really do believe that individuals can make a difference. And so I then deliberately took the choice to go into the environmental fields and study actually for a master's in environmental science, just to figure out how, we can really start to make an impact on the climate around us. And here I am today.
That's really interesting. I guess, was that very much influenced by growing up in Nigeria, which is a big oil producing country, right?
Absolutely. And the effects of oil pollution, but also the effects of, I suppose, poverty as well, linked to it. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's a dichotomy. You have an oil-producing nation, but you have a lot of poverty, and living side by side and seeing some of the effects of the damage. But, there was a little bit of also exploitation, I'll be honest with you, Lindsay, from there. The communities, the local communities are affected by exploitation from large corporations, and that's the truth. And so seeing that and wanting to help both the communities, but also, thinking about how we can change and really make a difference has been something that has been ingrained in my mind really, and continues and carries on through to this day.
Sounds like you're very fortunate that you've got a real purpose in terms of why you've chosen the career path you have.
Yeah, definitely by choice. Yeah.
And Dav, you've recently stepped up in our business, haven't you, into a VP role. So tell us a little bit about your career background and history.
It's quite interesting, really, Lindsay. My career path isn't as purposeful as Tutu. So I remember back in the day, we felt finished uni. We were the first years to have student loans back in those days, and I've come out of university thinking, wow, I've got to pay these off somehow. So I ended up taking up a job in a warehouse as a colleague on night shift all those years ago in a place called Brimsdown in Enfield. And from that, I just got the buzz for it. I really did. Every day was different. In those days, I was working for Tibbetts & Britton, and the camaraderie, the team ethic that was in that team, I just thought, wow, and I just fell in love. And through there, I've just had a variety of different roles within the business. I've worked up to, first line manager, took up a couple of admin roles, moved into operational management roles. Then, my first big break, it was a general manager role in Frapston, and big site and big experience, excellent learning curve. And then from there, I've then progressed to operations director and finally into the VP operations role from last June.
Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? Just to see that career progression, and great that you've continued to do that within our business.
I think the beauty of working for a company our size is being the opportunities that are available to all of us. So I think I've tried to maximise that and challenge myself every couple of years to move on to a different role, a different environment, just to continue your learning, but also to challenge yourself in different environments as well. And I think our company definitely gives us that opportunity.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, with our size and scale, you can do anything within a single country or in different countries, different divisions, different areas. You're absolutely right. But what is interesting about our business, and what's interesting about our UK business in particular, if I look at the population of the UK in general as a country, it's sort of 86-87% white in terms of, and then people of colour sort of 13-14%. But if I take that down to our UK supply chain business, our percentages are not as strong as that in terms of that diversity mix from a management population. We don't have 13-14% of our management being people of colour that you would perhaps expect to reflect that population. So I'd like to explore that a bit with you both if we can, and maybe firstly start off by talking to you, Dav, around the kind of barriers that you've faced maybe in life and in work that might be part of the reasoning why our diversity is not so representative of the population in general.
It's quite interesting, this, because I've been thinking about this more and more over recent times. And when I got promoted into the VP role of operations, it's quite interesting, the number of colleagues that contacted me and saying, well done, fantastic to see somebody of colour on, progressing up to that level. But when I think about it, you look at the FLM level, the first line management level, actually we have got quite a diverse team. You've got different nationalities, you've got different mixes of people. However, when you go up the levels of management, then all of a sudden it becomes less representative of the teams that are actually working. So I think there is fundamentally something around role models. We definitely need some more role models in these in the higher level management roles, so that you can aspire to that. But also at the same time, there is a little bit about confidence. I believe that we need to make sure that our FLMs and the colleagues feel the confidence to go for these roles as well, because I'm not sure whether they see that as a bit of a barrier as well. But for me, it's as much as pushing yourself, but also at the same time having your line manager say, look, go for it, because I think you're ready for it as well. So there's an element of that.
That's interesting. I think you're right, because I do see that there is certainly a real diverse mix in both our colleague and driver population and our FLM population that doesn't seem to flow up the tree, so to say. Tutu, what do you think? Have you experienced that kind of challenge within your career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. One of the times when I probably felt that there were certainly barriers in my career was when it was being a working mom actually. So being both a working mom, but a Black working mom. Okay. Interesting enough, when I moved to Coventry, which is where I'm based now, we moved from somewhere up north, and we moved to Coventry, and I didn't have the structure around me to say, can somebody look after my children? And so I needed flexible working patterns at the time, and that just it was a battle that I had to face, that I didn't need facing at the time. And so certainly that was a barrier, and also because I didn't have the structure around me, just external to work, to probably help to cope with that. That again, increasingly, it made an already stressful situation. Putting your children in school, made an already stressful situation much more stressful. And I found that part of the reason for that was there was nobody. Dav was talking about role models. There was nobody within my immediate team at the time that was experiencing the same thing. And so trying to get that empathy, in understanding the situation was definitely very, very difficult at the time. So that certainly was one of the times where I would say, yeah, there was definitely a barrier there.
Do you know, that is interesting. I mean, like you, Tutu, I moved to England from Ireland when I was working, and didn't have any family around me when our daughter was born. And we made the decision that my husband would give up work, because that was the only way we could manage that kind of childcare scenario with traveling without having that family support. So I do understand, and I do see that, we have to make choices as we go through our lives, unfortunately, don't we? So you both mentioned role models. So Dav, talk to me a bit more about role models in the business, and maybe the role models that you've had to support you in your career journey.
I still remember, I don't think I would have made the progression that I've done without a general manager that worked at Brimsdown. And he was just absolutely inspirational. I still think about the way he managed, now. And he was the first one I come across within the business in terms of pushing me and telling me to go and experience and challenge myself, and and actually saying, look, go and move to a different site and go and experience it and go and find out what it's like. So that was one. And then the second one, during my Primark days when I was working in the operation, a brilliant learning journey, absolutely fantastic. The toughest 3.5 years of my life, but now I think it's really helped me develop and grow. But the operations director at that time was fantastic. So no matter what challenge we had, but really supportive, really encouraging, and some of those traits that he's got, I've absolutely tried to take them with me on those. But there's two individuals that really resonate with me that, without them, I don't think I would have got to or pushed myself to the level that I've done. And that's not through a want of trying, but these guys was just, really, really inspirational, and you wanted to learn of them. And that's the type of role models, that I was talking about, that, you want to aspire to.
Now, that's interesting. Sounds like you've had some really strong coaches and supporters in those role models to help develop your career as an individual, which is really great to hear. And Tutu, maybe for you, I'll phrase the question just a little bit of a different way, and maybe this is a little bit challenging, but, we don't, as Dav said earlier, we don't have that many people of colour in senior roles in our business. There are a few, but not that many. And I just wondered, how does that feel for you as a Black woman in our business?
This is a really interesting one, Lindsay. It's been difficult, but again, it's not one of those things that you sometimes think about. You just get on with it sometimes, and then you come back and you think, oh, I'm the only person in the room. Actually, for me, it's usually I'm the only Black woman in the room. So I'm usually the only woman or the only Black woman in the room. So I get it twice. I remember that, one of the times when it really struck me, because again, I like I explained earlier, living half of my life in Nigeria, I guess is different for somebody else that grew up in the UK. So I was used to, lots of Black people around me, and then you move to a country, and then you do expect, frankly speaking, I expected to have more white people around me. But when it comes to being the single person, one of the times that really struck me was my early career in DHL. I think it was my final graduate presentation. And I remember walking into the room and opening the door, and it just struck me. I just saw, white men sat around the table, and I couldn't help it. I just said, I'm going to change this. That was literally what I said. I just said, I'm going to change this. And so that, that moment till this day stays with me. So for me, it's getting on with it. It's representation. It is trying to role model, trying to say, actually, you can do it. And it's about confidence and, and knowing what it is that you want to get out of life.
That's interesting, shocking. I mean, I guess I get the only female in the room sometimes, but I don't get it twice like you do. But it's interesting though, because Dav, when we were chatting just before we came online to have a discussion, you were saying often you feel the same, right?
Very true, Lindsay. Like I said, at the time, I didn't really think too much about it, yeah. But now, sitting back and reflecting back on the career journey that I've been with the business 26 years as well. So been with the company for a while. But it's quite interesting sitting in the national team meetings. Yeah, so these were GMs and equivalent and above. Yeah, so the senior management team of DHL at the time, and going in, and similar to what Tutu's just said, you sit in there and you're thinking, hang on, there's less than a handful. This can't be right. Yeah. And you then look at your peers and you think, everybody's going to say that. You look at your peers and you think, hang on, how have they progressed before me having an opportunity? But more and more now start thinking about it. I do think there was some in there, and it's right that we're talking about it. It's right that we're bringing it out to the open now and saying, look, let's tackle this. But at the time, I didn't really think about it. But now looking back, I do, and I think, hang on, something just didn't feel right at the time. But it did make me push myself. In the back of my mind, there's a little bit to say, look, I do want to progress. I do want to get to the next level, and I'm going to do everything I can to get, to put myself in that place.
Yeah, that's interesting that you both sort of said it made you think differently and want to do something differently. So let's unpick that a little bit more. I mean, what can we do as DHL? What can other companies do? What can individuals do to kind of change that balance a little bit?
I think we're on the right journey. I think Tutu's always talked about if I look at the future leaders, there's definitely a more diverse mix to the team that we're bringing on board, which is brilliant, which is absolutely brilliant to see. I think we do need to actively encourage role modelling, and we're doing that. And Tutu in her role, he's absolutely the head of the environmental solutions aspect, the Go Green agenda for us, and that is really, really powerful. But there is a bit around, how do we give the confidence to the F&Ms to become the next shift managers, to become the next ops managers to become the next GMs, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we broach the subject, and it's quite strange because it's quite a difficult subject, and sometimes you don't want to talk about it, right? And you're not sure whether you're going to say the right thing or not. But it's important that we do, and sometimes we will, unfortunately, say the wrong thing. But it's only to educate ourselves and only to learn, and it's important that we keep this level of communication going.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with Dav more. I think that just making a safe space to talk about it is really important. I wouldn't have thought 5 years ago that we would be having this conversation. About a year, about a year, 2 years ago, I attended a graduate placement. And again, I do these things from time to time, and I go and talk about Go Green. And there was a good mix of graduates in there, male, female, different diversities. And I talked about Go Green. And I remember that at the end of it, a young Black man came to me and he said, "Oh, it's nice to see you here." And I thought, what's he talking about? But he said, "Oh, it's nice to see you, a person of color." And I thought, okay, I wasn't thinking about that. But for him, it made a difference. Genuinely, it took me by surprise. It made a difference. And I think that having the opportunity and that space to talk about it, and having people that feel comfortable, to Dav's point, that feel comfortable that there aren't any places that are kept for, I don't know, that not everybody can attain to, I think is really, really important.
That concept of talking about it and providing that safe space, and as you just said, Tutu and Dav, your point about people worry about saying the wrong thing. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because often I worry about saying the wrong thing, and I'm sure many other people do as well. So What advice would you give to folks who are listening to us around, if they want to get into this subject and start to talk about diversity and about how to improve diversity in their organisation or change what they do? What advice would you give? Tutu, maybe you can start that one.
Not wanting to say the wrong things shows that you care. So that's one good step. I would say that if you just treated people as individuals, because ultimately, a Black person, a person of color, a person with a different gender identity, they're all people at the end of the day. So treating and approaching people as people and just being genuine will always come across. And that's better than not acknowledging them at all or not acknowledging the subject. So I think it really is just being honest, being open, being vulnerable, and having those conversations.
Interesting points you make there around just having the conversation and knowing that it's coming from the right place in terms of that you want to learn or you've got the right intent. I think is interesting. And Dav, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So it's good to be inquisitive. Yeah, we are a people business, and it's good to know, what makes people tick, what's important to them, and part of what will make them tick is their heritage and where they come from, and it's important to know that and to have those conversations in a way that actually you're trying to find out more, you're trying to learn. It's a part of your learning journey, and it's important that we do that and celebrate, and celebrate the differences. But it's important that we do create those safe spaces, because there is, I think we all do it, don't we, at times, to say, actually, am I going to say the right thing here? And before you know it, things could potentially escalate. And it's important that we get these forums out there, we have these conversations and try and drag out more and more. I was listening to your podcast, Lindsay, the one that you did with Sahel and Toby Ann, and the passion from these guys that are coming through our business, it's a wow factor. And we're learning so much from these guys because they've got that passion to celebrate that diversity. And I think the more and more learning that we do from these guys and the way they operate, I think it's only going to bring value to our organisation.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the race networks, the gender networks, the LGBTQ plus networks that we've now set up hopefully begin to give people in our business that safe space to come and talk and to learn and to educate. I completely agree. So talking about being inquisitive, Dav, I want to be a little inquisitive, a little curious, if you like. So you've already said you come from a Sikh religion. Tell me a bit about how you celebrate that, those religious holidays in the UK, because they're not mainstream celebrated in the UK. So tell us a little bit about how you make sure that you find the time to do that. When
you go through our DCs, and Lindsay, you'll see this as common practice in the number. You'll see normally a wall that's got all the flags of the various nations that celebrate the diversity of our teams. You find interesting facts, about the country, normally coming up to either a holiday or an event or a religious activity going on. But you'll normally find that we celebrate in terms of food offerings in the canteen areas, publicising in the newsletters, just to try and get more and more information out to the teams to say, actually, we've got somebody from this nation celebrating this event. Let's now learn a little bit about what it is, and do that. I know when my daughter was growing up, they used to do that a lot at school, and it's pretty much doing what they were doing at that age and bringing that to a work environment. So it's something that I'm really proud of to see how many different nationalities we have working at our sites. And it's important that we do recognise each and every one of them and celebrate, what's important to them.
Yeah, I think it's great the way that we can begin to do that, and we do that more now. It's almost normal to do that, isn't it? In our business, certainly in the UK. Tutu, I'd like to talk to you a little bit. So this month is Black History Month, and I'm curious to just explore your view on that in terms of, what do you think of that as an event? Because I know we're doing some work in the UK at the minute in terms of celebrating that and raising awareness and education.
Black History Month, thinking about it, the opportunity that it gives to I suppose bring to the fore a story that is typically hidden. Okay, so is the concept of the one-sided story, the single-sided story. And I think that that has permeated, I suppose, through our culture and society for a very long time. So from the point of view of bringing awareness and hearing a different side of the story, I absolutely welcome that. Getting people educated. I do wish that we didn't have to have Black History Month. I'd be really honest, but we have to start somewhere. So I'm hoping that very quickly we can move from education and awareness to actually just an appreciation of the various cultures that we have, whether Black, Asian, white, whatever it is. So it's okay for now and it's good for now. But I'm hoping that very quickly as a society we can move to just understanding and appreciating each other.
Okay, we're getting towards the close of this. I've got two final questions for you both. So the first final question is, and Tutu, I'll start with you. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Gosh, wow. I take inspiration from strong women, I would say. Strong women around me, strong independent women around me. And whether that's in business, whether that's in my personal life, I'll say definitely my mom. My dad, I'll have to say, just in case he's listening as well. But generally, honestly, strong women around me, because I've grown up with people that are typically, marginalized, whether in society in one way or the other, but they fight through it, they power through it. Lack of education doesn't hold them back, or lack of opportunity doesn't hold them back. So shout out to all the strong women around me. They definitely inspire me and push me.
Okay, so we got a shout out for inspirational strong women. Thank you for that. And Dav, what about you? Who inspires you? Who's that inspirational role model that you think about?
So similar to what Tutu's just said, my folks first and foremost. Yeah, they came over in the 60s, couldn't speak a word of English. They've made a life here. They've there's five of us. They've settled us all down. We're all doing our independent things, but that sense. For me, what those guys have done personally, I'll never forget, and I want to try and keep that going. But outside of that, being a football fan, it's a bit corny, but the England football team are inspiring me at the moment. I love the way Gareth Southgate, the diversity in the team, and then being relentless about fighting any racism has been absolutely brilliant to see. And it is changing. I've been on the terraces, like I said, since 1999. It is definitely changing that perception that it is not okay to be racist. Actually, let's be anti-racist and make a stand against it. But that camaraderie, that team spirit, that they're in it for all of them, I think is a wow factor and something that we can definitely learn in the teams that we're building, in all of our within our sites as well. So for me, that's a real strong message. And that's very clear, and I'm loving it. I've got to say, I'm really loving it.
And that's interesting you say that. I'm not a football fan at all, but even I have seen and heard some of that. I've been very impressed by the maturity of some of those young Black footballers in that English team, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Lindsay. And for them to take a stand, but not only the Black footballers, you've got the white footballers that are standing shoulder to shoulder and saying this is not good enough. And that to me is what makes a difference here, because we've had it in the past with other, anti-racism campaigns where it's been the Black footballers talking about it. Actually, now there's a difference. There is a real team togetherness that is saying we ain't standing for this, and if you don't want to be part of it, don't support us. And that's a very strong message.
So, a final short kind of closing message on the subject of diversity and inclusion from you both. A message for all of our listeners. So, Dav, let's go first with that.
I think for me personally, I think you've got to believe you can do it. Yeah, there's got to be an inner belief in saying, look, whatever barriers we will smash through, I'm going to do everything I can to push myself as far as I can. The other thing I would say is please reach out to any individuals that you feel that can support your journey and make the time and make those contacts and really channel, whether they be in your personal life or in your professional life, but really use the experience that people have gained to date and say what else we can do. But there is a real strong piece from me to say that have the courage of your convictions as well. Be strong. If you don't feel comfortable, talk about it. And that's the forums that we are, we're really putting together. And it is all about, Everybody is different. Everybody's unique, but celebrate it. Let's not use that as a blocker. Definitely celebrate it. And for me, that's vitally important in our organisation.
So some key messages there I heard. Use your network, believe in yourself, have courage, be confident, and celebrate everybody's uniqueness. Thanks for that. Those are some really important messages. And Tutu, your final closing thoughts on diversity and inclusion?
I think mine would be, listen. Take the time to really listen to people. Take that time to listen, create that safe space, and listen to the experiences and believe the experiences. Don't kind of, I suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't use your own experience to judge somebody else's experience or somebody else's reality. When people share their reality with you, believe their reality, because their reality is not your reality, and create that safe space and just treat people like people. Just be nice, be kind. It goes without saying, you would say, but honestly, I just think be kind.
That's a really powerful message, isn't it? Be kind, be nice to people. But I think what you're saying resonates a lot in terms of, don't belittle someone else's experience. Believe it, take it for what it is from their perspective and their point of view, and their reality is not yours. So I really like that. Thank you. I think that's a very powerful message to end on. And the overall, be kind to people, we're all different, I think is coming through from you both. So that's it for today. Thank you all for listening. Watch out for our next episode. You'll be hearing more from us around diversity and inclusion in DHL Supply Chain, UK and Ireland. And as ever, you can watch us on YouTube and you can listen to us on Spotify or iTunes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dav and Tutu, both for such an interesting and enlightening conversation today. I really appreciate it.